So, today we're going to tackle one of the biggest mysteries there is consciousness. We're diving into a really groundbreaking paper that offers a radical new way to think about who we are. It's an idea that might just challenge everything you thought you knew. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with a question I'm sure you've kicked around before. Is your dog conscious? I mean, really conscious? What about a bee buzzing by? Or looking to the future? What about a super intelligent AI? And look, this isn't just a philosophical game. The answer really gets to the heart of how we define ourselves and our place in the universe.
Now, the usual answer, the one most of us kind of lean on, is that consciousness is a spectrum, like a dimmer switch. An insect might have this tiny little flicker of awareness, your dog has a bit more, and then humans, well, we're at the top, shining at full blast. This whole idea is what scientists call the continuum spectrum model.
But what if that's the wrong metaphor entirely? What if it's not a dimmer switch at all? What if, instead, it's a completely different kind of light? The paper we're exploring today argues that this whole spectrum idea is fundamentally wrong.
It all starts with proposing a totally new model, the two-layer brain. And this isn't about having more or less consciousness. It's about two fundamentally different ways of being.
So first up is layer one, what the paper calls adaptive intelligence. You can think of this as the biological operating system. It's an unbelievably sophisticated algorithm that's constantly processing information, learning, and tweaking behavior, all for one purpose: to survive and reproduce. According to this theory, every animal, and that includes us, runs on this base layer.
But then you've got layer two, reflective consciousness. And this is crucial. It's not just a software update on layer one. It's a completely different function. It's the ability to give meaning to our experiences. It's what lets us step outside of our own biological programming. And the paper's big claim is that this layer is exclusively human. Yeah, and this table just lays it all out, crystal clear. On the left, you have adaptive intelligence. It's all about optimizing, responding, adapting to the world as it is. But look at the right, reflective consciousness. It creates its own goals from the inside out. It doesn't just adapt to the environment, it transforms it. One is basically predictable, the other is totally emergent and unpredictable.
So what's the secret sauce here? Well, the paper calls it the interpretive gape. For any other animal, a stimulus leads almost directly to a programmed response. It's basically automatic. But for humans, something incredible happens. There's a pause, a gape, and in that gape we interpret, we create meaning, and only then do we choose from a huge menu of possible responses.
Okay, so a theory this big, well, it needs some big evidence to back it up, right? Where in the world can we actually see this supposedly human-only layer 2 in action?
I mean, it's a huge claim to say that only humans operate on this level. And the paper argues that the proof isn't found by looking inside a brain with an fMRI scan. No, the proof is in what we do. It's in the unique signature we've left behind in the historical and archaeological record.
In this timeline, wow, it shows it perfectly. For millions of years, our ancestors used tools, that's layer one, adaptive intelligence at work. But then, starting around 130,000 years ago, something totally new appears in the record. We see ritual burials with grave goods. We see jewelry that serves no survival function. We see cave art, music. These things aren't about survival. They're about meaning. This is the footprint of layer two.
So the paper gives us three big tests, three criteria to look for. First is spontaneous drive. Humans do things for no obvious biological reason at all. We stare at the stars and ask, why are we here? We pursue theoretical physics. I mean, think about it. For hundreds of millions of years of animal life on this planet, we've never observed a single species do anything that wasn't at its core about staying alive or making more of itself. All right, number two is creative surplus. A bird builds a nest to lay its eggs. That's function. A human being builds a cathedral to express an idea about God. We create these incredible things that go way, way beyond our basic needs. This impulse to create art, to perform rituals, the paper argues that's a clear signature of meaning-making.
And the third one, and this might be the most mind-bending, is the transformation of experience. An animal's response to something like pain or fear is pretty much hardwired by its biology. But humans? We can take the exact same raw data of an experience and give it radically different meanings, which then leads to radically different actions.
Honestly, this slide right here says it all. Just look at the stimulus of hunger. An animal's response is a given. It's going to go find food. But a human can choose a hunger strike for a political cause or religious fasting for spiritual reasons. These are actions that fly directly in the face of that layer 1 survival algorithm. This ability to override our most basic, primal programming, that is the definitive signature of layer 2 consciousness.
Okay, so if we take this model seriously, even for a moment, what does it mean for how we think about animals and the future of AI? This is where things get really interesting and maybe a little uncomfortable.
Let's talk animal ethics first. The paper makes this really fascinating flip. The argument is no longer don't hurt animals because they're conscious just like us. No, instead it becomes don't hurt animals because we are conscious. Our ethical duty comes from our own capacity for meaning and moral choice, not from trying to guess what's going on in their heads. It puts the focus squarely on our responsibility. And then there's AI. Could a machine ever truly be conscious? Well, this model says, forget the Turing test. That's child's play. Here's a much harder set of questions. Can an AI create its own goals without us programming them in? Can it choose to act against its own core programming? Can it find multiple, even contradictory, meanings in the same piece of data? Not to get a better result, but just because?
So, when you use this checklist, the paper's conclusion is pretty blunt. No AI system that exists today even comes close to qualifying as conscious. All that creativity we're seeing from AI, it's just insanely sophisticated pattern matching. It's layer 1 on steroids, but it's still just layer 1.
And that brings us to the very heart of this whole idea, the philosophical core. If this capacity for meaning-making is what makes us unique, what does that really say about the human condition? The paper gives us this beautiful kind of haunting line. It says animals live in an algorithmic Garden of Eden. Their lives are determined by biology. They don't have existential crises. But we exited that garden. And consciousness is our incredible gift, but it's also the source of our burden, the anxiety, the uncertainty, and the constant, uniquely human need to create our own meaning in a universe that doesn't just hand it to us.
And this all leads to a pretty stunning update on one of the most famous lines in all of philosophy. For centuries, we've had René Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. This new model suggests it's time for a reformulation. Interpret ergo sum. I interpret, therefore I am. It's not just our ability to think, but our inescapable drive to interpret, to make meaning, that truly defines us. It suggests our entire civilization, our art, our science, our laws, is built on this collective act of meaning-making. And that leaves us with one final, crucial question. If we are the species that interprets, what kind of meaning are we going to create next?